It's alive! Abomination is actually kind of a big game. Like, it's very straightforward. Like, if you've played worker placement games before, you will definitely get it. Like, it's on the heavier side, and it's a bit of a longer game. But I think mechanically, it's pretty straightforward. There's just a decent amount of options and, like, steps to get to complete the things you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, it's a longer game because it's so much of like, I need to get this resource, I need to be at this point, I need to get this to preserve that resource, They need to get this to roll this so that I can do this, so that I can get this thing that is a stepping stone to what I need to win the game.
Right.
Now, before we get really into it, I do want the disclaimer that this is like a gruesome game. Like, hopefully, like, you know enough of that before you watch this, but if you are like squeamish or if you got like little kids with you, there are definitely some like dark tones to this game.
Yeah, we're going to show you some pictures of some messed up stuff, and we'll show you pictures of the game too.
but just full disclaimer, like, if that's not your thing, this is not a game for you. Just that's all you need to hear.
Yeah, it's like the game Sorcerer by White Wizard Games was also pretty, I don't know, they're different though. Like, Sorcerer was like, yeah, it was kind of gory, but it had like, pentagrams and stuff.
It was more like satanic stuff and cultish stuff.
This is
just dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like,
this is like straight up like gruesome. And it's really funny because I also played the Friday the 13th game, and that one has like an age restriction, which I don't think this one really does. And this one's way bloodier.
So thematically, this game takes place years after Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, amazing book if you haven't read it. And it's the heir of Frankenstein. Frankenstein's monster comes back to this like convention of scientists where he's trying to find somebody to build him an heir because he wants more company, and he's forcing them each to try to build him an heir, and there's a time limit to that. So to build this monster, you are going and raiding graves and raiding hospitals, or you can just go straight up and go kill someone to harvest their body parts to go and build this monster for Frankenstein's monster. Right. So that is the dark undertones of you're dealing with cadavers, you're raiding hospitals, you're raiding morgues, you're straight up killing people, you're killing dogs. Like,
I don't think you ever actually kill a dog. You either hire a dog catcher or you go to the slaughterhouse to get animal parts.
I'm pretty sure they let you kill the dog when you go there. You have to pay extra for
it. So when we talk about killing people and raiding the hospital and the cemetery and stuff, so those are the main ways you gain resources, right? Like, you can go to the cemetery, or you can go to the hospital, or you can go to the morgue, or you could hire somebody to go kill somebody for you, or you can straight up murder. And it's that type of thing that makes me say, okay, so all of those things that I just said are basically ways to gain your resources. So there's a lot of choices on how I'm going to gain these resources, but at the end of the day, you're gaining resources, spending them for points, essentially, when you're building your body. And then there's these 3 dials that you have that are also points. So it's like it's worker placement, gaining resources, spending them for points, and advancing on tracks. Well, I don't know if dials are the same as tracks, but you know what I mean? Like, the very core of it is pretty straightforward.
Now, I will say that is very true. I absolutely agree with you. But it does not feel like a game where they just took a worker placement game and slapped a gruesome theme on it.
True.
Like, they absolutely introduced mechanics into the game that blend really well with the thematics. And you could absolutely reskin this game into something a little bit more, family friendly.
Yeah.
But the way that, like, you harvest these body parts, and depending on where you get them from, they could be fresher. If you kill somebody, they're a level 1. If you're raiding the graveyard, they're like level 3 or 4, where they're like pretty decomposed already. So when you bring them back to your lab, as rounds go on, these body parts start decomposing, and you get more points the fresher the body parts are, and you can bring in ice to help preserve the body parts, or if you decide you don't need them, you can go sell them off if you don't want to use them anymore. Mm-hmm. So, like, things like that, they really did a good job of taking the thematics of the game and shaping mechanics in the game around them to really give it a unique experience.
Yeah, like, you can lose reputation and you can lose humanity, but you can't really lose expertise,
Yeah.
And like, you're going to get more money lecturing if you
have more experience,
right? More expertise. And if you have a better reputation, they'll let you go into the morgue at the hospital and stuff. They're fine with that, But if they don't really know you, maybe they won't let you in there to get a body. I'm going to start talking about complaints real quick. The board is very drab looking, like in color. Like, it does work thematically, but it is kind of like, bleh. Maybe that's good because of some of the gruesome things. You don't want real bright colors like Suspiria. It's you want it to look like that, maybe. But it's also a little bit funky that there's a bunch of decks of cards. And I actually do like the fact that it's very card-based. A lot of the resources you get from the bodies and stuff are cards. You'll flip up cards.
They cycle out a lot.
Yeah, they cycle out a lot and stuff. And then there's how you move up on these tracks, your humanity and your reputation and stuff. Those are cards an awful lot of times. So I do like that. It increases the variety. But it's a little bit funky that, like, some decks have spaces on the board where you put the decks, and some decks don't. Like, I get that, like, the ones where you have a display of cards face up, the deck is off to the side, but it just, like,
even at the hospital, you do display cards.
Yeah, you display, it was the other way around. You display cards outside of you put the deck on the board and you play, like, it's just...
And I don't know if maybe it's because there's ways that you can have extra cards displayed. And
because it's the number of players.
Yeah, so they were like, we don't want to make slots that you're not going to use and cause confusion.
Yeah, and I mean, the board isn't that big, but it does take up a lot of table space because your player board is huge, So it's one of those things that I guess I overall get. I understand. It's like a necessary evil. But every time I go to set up, I have to check the rulebook and be like, so what goes where and why and when do I replace it? And, this deck is face up? It's that kind of thing. It's a little bit like...
Yeah, the other complaint that I would have is, we already kind of touched on it, but the length of the game can sometimes just be like, it just takes you a while to ramp up. It takes you a while to get expertise so you can get into these places to get it. And there's kind of just a generic, like, everybody's just trying to, like, get expertise, get reputation, get some body parts built so that the game can really start. It feels like there's a lot of legwork to get moving.
Which is why there's the Igor variant on their website. I think you can even download the rules as a PDF, which is really great. And I would recommend that you try it. I'm not going to say that you should never play the base game again or whatever, because even though it does take a while, you feel like you're settling in for the game and every decision matters and you really want to, take your time and make sure you're making all the right decisions and pushing yourself in the right directions you want to go and whatnot. But yeah, the Igor variant, the main things is that they cut down a couple of the rounds. They add more executions, which was a thing that happens from this event deck, but it's very possible that you just don't have many come up. Or like in the last game I played, where I played the full game, it came up, the execution thing came up twice, but only one of them triggered because it was on the other side of the card, right? Just talk about these events real quick. You have events and encounters in this deck that you start one at the beginning of every round. They're double-sided, which is why you have this little cover card thing. That's pretty cool because like later in the game things get more intense. And I think they're overall cool. I like events, they're fine. I think the encounters though is a mechanic that I could take or leave.
It's kind of like the Crossroads mechanic, right?
A little bit. It's story based. There's like a book with in the rule book there's all these different like story scenarios. So it gives you an
option. Option A, read this paragraph. Option B, read this paragraph.
And there's different things that trigger and stuff. Like, it's cool to mix it up, but for me it's something that just in my gaming, my gaming type, I guess, it's just not my cup of tea. I could do without it.
I really enjoy that in games. I felt like it was almost a little out of place in this game.
Yeah, it's like a splash. It's like every once in a while there could be this random effect where you made the wrong choice and now bad stuff happened to you.
Yeah, where in a game where it's so much worker placement, resource management, like having that random little bit thrown in there. And there's a few things like that where they just like toss in a little bit of could be bad that don't quite fit for me in a game that is like this long and this much just like meticulous resource management, moving up on these tracks, getting these things to do this thing, and now it's up to chance.
Mm-hmm. It's like Arkham Horror, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But and it's more often too. So anyways, I know I rambled on there for a little while, but again, the Igor variant shortens the number of rounds. it also makes public executions happen a bit more often, or like more, they're going to happen, which is great because they have those level 1
Then you see
body
more
parts.
decapitated heads.
Right. But those level 1 body parts are really valuable, so you really want that to come up. Otherwise, you have to just hope you get him at the hospital, which maybe you will, maybe you won't.
Or you can just murder somebody to get level 1s.
Which is probably not worth it. Losing 3 humanity is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but it's less humanity if you pay somebody to go murder somebody for you. Who is it? The slasher or something? The cutthroat. This cutthroat is only 1 humanity you lost, and you still get a whole bunch of level 1 stuff. So like that may be a better way to mitigate it, because you're not really killing somebody. You're just paying somebody else to kill them for you.
Yeah. The point is though that's not always out there, and level 1s might not always be out there in here either. So level 1s can be hard to come by if we don't get more public executions. But probably one of the best parts about the Igor variant is when you roll to bring your body parts to life. So I know we already said gain resources and spend them to build the body. But then after that, you need to bring it to life. So there's a little thing where you get these jars that you charge, and then you flip them to roll dice to see if you bring certain body parts to life.
It's alive!
Yeah. So the original, the gray dice that you start off with you can either damage the body, you could lose humanity, or you could bring it to life. And then as you get your expertise up, you could swap out gray dice for blue dice that have less damage on them and don't have that loss of humanity. And that loss of humanity is a big deal, especially towards the end of the game.
Because when you're moving up on these dials, they are really basically tracks that you're moving up and down on. But like as you gain humanity, you also gain reputation. But when you lose that humanity, when you cross back over that spot where you gained the reputation, you also lose that reputation again. Or with reputation, you get more lab assistants, and you can lose those lab assistants as you lose reputation. Mm-hmm. So the fact that like you went and rolled dice and it made you lose humanity and something that you didn't get to have control over, you're losing a lot more than just humanity. You're losing the points that humanity gave you. You're losing the reputation that having that, the humanity gave you reputation that also gave you points or also gave you lab workers. So there's definitely like it crumbles down all around you. It's not just like a bad thing in a situation that you don't have any control over.
But with the Igor variant, the biggest thing is that now those hearts are optional. You can spend them to get a success, which makes sense both in like that way the dice don't suck as bad, but also now I'm not, it's faster for me to bring this thing to life, right? Because I could go like 5 turns rolling, and just never get anything to life, So I'm not here to say that the Igor variant is superior to the original version, but it is a really great, if you're saying, I can't play Abomination because that's so long. I don't have the time. I don't have people who are going to sit down for 3 hours, whatever, to really sink through this game. Fear not.
I would go ahead as far as say, I don't know if I would ever want to play the full game. I'd probably, from here on out, just Igor variant. That being said, like, I don't really have a lot of complaints about this game. Like, especially with the Igor variant and that dice mitigation. Like, there's the caveat of the theme, and that limits who you can play it with. But beyond that, for a like bigger, longer worker placement game where you're gonna get the levels of get this to get this to get this to get that, I loved it. As far as gameplay goes, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I mean it's right down my alley of thematic Euro, kind of crunchy, get a lot of points, making sure I have all the right resources and all that kind of stuff with just a little bit of random. Again, there's parts that I could take or leave, mostly the encounter thing. And, it is going to be a problem getting into the table with some people because of the gruesome nature, but overall, love it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys do want to pick up a copy of Abomination, we'll put a purchase link down in the description box down below. We're also going to put a link to where you can download the Igor expansion rules, so that way, if you do want to check it out, we'll make it super easy for you.
Also, there's going to be a link to Game Toppers down there, but there's also going to be a little button that says subscribe. Whoa, subscribe to your channel. That way we'll never be bored. Bam.